Nigeria lost one of its best visionary banker and entrepreneur last Friday, Herbert Wigwe, the iconic leader of today's Access Bank PLC. Wigwe's death via a fatal air accident in the United States has been felt not only in Nigeria but around the world. In this report, Arise business anchor Boason Omofaye captured some of the biggest footprints of the late Access Bank leader.
As we move into the next 5 years, we will come and share with you at a later date our plans. But we have transited from being the narrow banking structure that we had before into one that has now a payment structure, that has an insurance platform, that will look at pensions, all right, and also digital banking, etc. The whole idea is that we're going to create a massive ecosystem for every Nigerian to plug into if you want to do and you want to create great opportunities for yourself. This maiden outing of Access Holdings trading under Access Corporation for us is one that we don't take for granted, and we've come again to share with you the fact that you will be supporting one of the largest corporates in this country, not just in this country but across the continent, and we will do you proud.
2 years into that market briefing at the Nigerian Exchange April 2022, Herbert Wigwe, the head of one of Nigeria's iconic and blue-chip financial services supermarket known as Access Corp, is no more. The tragic death of Herbert, alongside his wife and son in the United States on Friday the 9th of February, was a rude shock to the Nigerian banking sector, the financial markets, and the entire country. With the relevant education and academic knowledge in his back pockets, Herbert Wigwe dived into the world of banking and finance earlier in life, as he also piled up professional qualifications for the journey ahead. Cutting his teeth at Coopers and Lybrand, Herbert stepped into the world of banking at Capital Merchant Bank, then to GT Bank, where he and his bosom partner and friend, Ig Mokwede, launched one of the most ambitious and daring corporate takeover of Nigeria's banking history. That was at the start of the 2000 era. The late Herbert Wigwe was a real entrepreneur, clothed in the garb of a banker, whose visions and goals are set far beyond the shores of Nigeria. But the starting point for Wigwe and his team at Access Bank was to reform the lender and transform it into a 21st century financial powerhouse. Over the past few years, Herbert Wigwe launched Access Bank into an aggressive frontier Africa and global expansion that grabbed the headlines. As the new year 2024 kicks in, Herbert Wigwe was set to add yet another mega deal into the Access Bank Hall of Fame. It is the Standard Chartered UK Bank deal. Herbert Wigwe will be remembered as a gentleman and a Nigerian banker of repute. His demise has opened a floodgate of encomiums on his life and times from around the world. Herbert Wigwe has left behind several legacies in banking, finance, investments, and even international sports, such as the Access Bank Annual Marathon. But as the cold hands of death snatched away Herbert Wigwe, the new Wigwe University, preparing for its 2024-2025 session, is another profound testimony to a man of vision and passion whose name goes into the annals of Nigeria's greatest men on Broad Street.
I will tell you something about being fearless. That powerful state of mind where you refuse to be constrained by the consciousness of your limitations, where you face your challenges as an adventurous quest, focusing on the joys of winning rather than the fear of losing.
Boason, Omofaye, Arise News.
I could not have foreseen the great future that is now Access Corporation.
Now, very sad indeed. And with us to discuss the passing of the banking giant is Arise News anchor, Boason Omofaye. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Thank you for having me.
Well, of course, this is a very sad and tragic story, but just talk to us briefly, about the man, Herbert Wigwe, what his legacies are, what Nigeria, Africa and the rest of the world will miss most about him.
I think, and condolences to those he left behind, and the kids and his parents and very close friends and other family members, as well as that of Ogunbanjo, who was the immediate past chairman of the Nigerian Exchange. I think the market in Broad Street, we just lost two of the most illustrious sons and very visionary men, and both were visionary and pioneers in a different ways. For example, Wigwe was there with Access, with Aigimokwede, when they took over Access Bank. If you know Access Bank before 2002, when they came in from GT Bank and pitched into Access Bank and made that very daring pitch on Access Bank and took this bank from the back street of Broad Street to be one of the biggest bank in Nigeria, and not just in Nigeria, but across Africa and around the world. As you saw in that report, they were about making one of the biggest deal ever that any Nigerian bank would ever have done, and that's picking the Standard Chartered Bank of UK's African subsidiaries. And remember what Standard Chartered is planning to do is to sell down some of its operations across a number of African countries, and that deal was to be picked up by Access Bank in the first half of this year. So, which means that one of the things he's working on, apart from this university, was the fact that they're going to pick this asset across about 6 or 8 countries, so Standard Chartered in Africa. Now, if you look at this business, it's a huge deal. That would have made Nigeria one of the biggest banks in Africa, and globally speaking, because again, Standard Chartered is one of the biggest banks in the world, you know that. And for Access Bank to be able to pick that deal would have put Nigeria's name a little bit higher on the ranking of banks in Nigeria. We have taken Access Bank to a completely different level. But I'm sure they have a succession plan in place. I'm sure the bank will not rest on their oars to maintain the kind of leadership that Herbert Wigwe has given them over time. There's a bank that I'm sure you have very robust succession plan in place. But as sad as this may, I remember my last interaction with him was at the stock exchange last year when 2 years ago now, 2022, when Access Bank was transformed to a holding company structure, which is now Access Corporation. We initially went for a first press briefing, then later we went for this closing gong at the store at the NGX, and then after the event, I had a one-on-one interview with him, and he spoke to me as a man who's not done yet. He's got a whole lot of fire in his belly, as far as vision, as far as mission, as far as taking Nigerian banking system to the next level really is. And he just went to the exchange with some members of the team to unveil the next 5 years vision for Access Bank. The previous 5 years, I was also there at the press briefing some couple of years ago. Now they are moving to the next phase of that. And that next phase is going to be a momentous one for the bank, for Access Bank. And part of it was this Standard Chartered deal. There are about 13 countries, globally speaking, the UAE, you talk about UK, you talk about Paris, France. And it's a whole lot of putting Nigeria's name among the biggest financial services industry in the world. One of the countries that's very difficult to penetrate was South Africa. And they're able to come in through a Grow Bank in South Africa. They were able to raise Nigerian flag in South Africa as a Nigerian bank. That's the first ever. No Nigerian bank had been able to penetrate South Africa. Again, they were able to put a standalone unit there. They've got a run office over there. They picked that up, and they're doing massive penetration and inroad into Eastern African region, as well as a little bit thinking of coming down, and also Central African region as well with the DR Congo and what have you. And these are where the biggest banks in Kenya, for example, the likes of I&M, the likes of Equity Holdings are also making a big pitch. So Wigwe took the last few years, 2-3 years immediately after COVID-19 to pitch, to stand head-to-head with the big names in East Africa, Equity Bank Holdings, the KCBA and the rest of them who are also doing a whole lot of in Rwanda. I visited the Access Bank unit in Rwanda before. I've also with their services in a few other countries. So I know their offices in a few African countries by virtue of my job as a journalist. So the whole game changer that Access Bank had become and becoming. So Access is not a local bank. Access Bank is an international bank with headquarters in Nigeria. And that is what? If you're doing 13 countries within Africa and around the world, that is where you are. I guess, and my question to you last time was that, whether they're going to the Far East, maybe they're going to China, or maybe Malaysia or Singapore. And I think if there's anything, if you could just go inside Herbert's head, I'm sure China, Beijing, you'll find it there in his DNA. I'm sure he'll be thinking, and I'm sure he'll be thinking of to put Access Bank in that region. And I think that is one area that they will be thinking of. But so far as the Western world and Africa's footprint is concerned, they've done very pretty well. Become a trillionaire market cap bank on the stock exchange. They're paying dividends. They've done most of the most daring acquisitions in Nigeria between Intercontinental Bank and Diamond Bank, former Diamond Bank then. So, and of course there were certain rumors on the street then they were going to take on one of the oldest banks in Nigeria. I don't want to mention names. Yes, it was all there then during the Lamido Sanusi's era and that rejigging or banking recapitalization. They were actually gunning for one of the oldest banks in Nigeria back then. They were like, oh, they're going to acquire, because it was just some young folks, himself, Herbert, Ike, and the rest. And they were aiming for one of the Leviathan in the Nigerian banking industry. And it was all in the news about whether they were going to acquire it or not. How can you acquire someone like a grandfather or great-grandfather of a bank? But that shows how daring Herbert and his bosom friend, Ike Imokede, who I'm sure will be extremely devastated by now, by what has happened to his long-term friend and business partner. But again, this is where we find ourselves today, quite very tragic.
What a man, what a legacy. I mean, there's so much to talk about there. He's left so many very palatable projects currently running and future projects to be enacted. But you were talking about the succession planning, which is one of the big topics that are coming up now surrounding this unfortunate incident. With everything that he had planned and all the projects that he had started, how important is it for other business leaders or visionaries or individuals who are just working so hard and maybe looking so much at the bigger picture?
Yes.
How important is it for them to have some type of succession type plan, some type of backup, a bunch of people that you can rely on so that your dream can carry on?
I think I love that. But the first thing is that what Herbert and by extension Ike Imokede has done is to show that, look, you can dream big and you can actually get it done. You don't have to necessarily see yourself as an underdog, okay? And you can really take on the big deals across Nigeria and globally speaking. And I think it's a lesson for others in the Nigerian banking sector that you can actually dream big and you can go ahead and get it done. I think he has shown by example that it can be done, it can be fixed. So they show themselves, they show their hands at every point in time that this is where they're going. They're going big and as big as it can get. So as far as the banking and financial services is done, they are on that trajectory. They have that under their belt. So what that means is that we need to see more Nigerian banks become very daring across Africa and around the world, globally speaking as well. And that is the message I want to pass across, that Wigwe has shown that it can be done. So we need to take on more leadership role in the Pan-African and global financial services space. Remember, he was also working with Access Bank, with the central bank under the immediate past administration, at the central bank on the National Theatre revamping project. That was also part of what he won. He also very vocal as far as the bankers committee is concerned in terms of supporting various sectors of the economy, whether it's small and medium enterprises, entertainment, creative arts, sports, and what have you. So the Access Bank's annual marathon event was also another testimony that it also put Africa on the global sports scene. With that, we look at Kenyans, Tanzanians, folks from all over the world come to Nigeria and win in the Access Bank annual marathon. So that also shows that, look, it's not just about banking, but we can also do a few other things.
I want to throw in art in there because
he was a huge
patron of the art world,
by the way.
Artex,
yes, he is.
And all the many years that he contributed, the Access Bank contributed to that, and the amount of African artists that they had given such a huge platform to be seen and celebrated year after year cannot be talked about.
No, I get you. So look, this is one thing that we can do a whole lot more. I want to see more Nigerian banks and institutions put something out there that will give Nigeria more credibility, make us to be seen as. Imagine the thousands of folks around the marathon, for example, annually, the thousands of dollars that they place on the table, and just raise a game for us as far as sports is concerned. So we can see that in art, in entertainment, in creative art. I want to see a whole lot more in philanthropy that we can do beyond the basics that we've done so far here, that will bring Africa and the world to Nigeria, like this marathon of a thing. So that is also some of the things I want others to also do. Then the university as a different project that's very dear to his heart, believing that, look, education is the best that you can give. I spoke to one of the industry financial services leaders and friend earlier this morning. Said, look, Wigwe told him, look, a bank can go down, but university education stay with you for life. When you educate people, when you put knowledge and the best of it in the hands of people, you empower them for life and generations and everyone at large. So it's a whole lot more. So the university is something that I would want to appeal to those who are on the board of directors, those who are the board of trustees and others, to ensure that this project does not stop for a day. And I'm not saying die. It shouldn't even stop for one day. As soon as the period of mourning and all that is passed, the university should move on with speed with which Herbert himself would have done it. So I think there's a whole lot of responsibility on the back of those who are the board of trustees and those who are the pillars that he would have put on ground to ensure that this dream see the light of day. That will be one of the greatest legacies and things they could do for the memories of Herbert Wigwe. But I'm sure you're going to ask me about Ogunbanjo as well.
Well, definitely, yes. I was just about to ask you, about Abimbola Ogunbanjo. Let's talk about his contribution to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, his legacies, what he will be missed for the most.
It would also be, Ogunbanjo will also be missed. So someone I have worked with as a journalist, and I've interviewed a couple of times, very quiet individual, but also a renowned lawyer in corporate law in Nigeria. He's someone I've known, I had personal contact with as well over time. And he's someone who also believes that, yes, the we need to put the best of us forward. Of course, remember he's the son of the late Chris Ogunbanjo, who one of the iconic Nigerian corporate leaders in the ilk of the former late Onosode and a few others who most some of us, like including Wigwe, including Abimbola Ogunbanjo himself, the late Ogunbanjo, and of course Aig and a few others learned from in terms of corporate finance in Nigeria, good corporate governance, in terms of investments, the market, the big names, those who were all pioneers back then. So he is the son of one of the best that Nigeria's ever had as far as the financial and corporate Nigeria, really. So we talk about corporate Nigeria. Chris Ogunbanjo, his father, his late father, was one of them. Then now he himself has tragically passed on. He was there as a chairman, holding the hands of everyone around the table towards the demutualization of the Nigerian exchange. You know, that has taken many years in coming. So for all the different parties, they needed the experience, they needed the guidance of someone like Abimbola Ogunbanjo to hold all their hands together to the table and make sure that everyone signed on nicely and everyone's interests is represented in the new horizon that Nigerian Exchange Group will become and is now set on that path for its second or third year. So Ogunbanjo will also be very sorely missed by the Nigerian Exchange community. I've seen the message that was sent out by the Nigerian Exchange. I'm sure the Nigerian Exchange, which is the stock exchange, the trading platform, will have a session, a mock session sometime in the days and weeks ahead in honor of both Herbert Wigwe and Ogunbanjo as well. We'll get to see how all of that goes. But again, Ogunbanjo also bring to bear the fact that you need men who are qualified and men of integrity who will be able to pilot the affairs of an organization such as the exchange through a very difficult and transition period from being a mutually registered exchange to that of a public limited liability, a public publicly held shares held company, PLC, from a mutual exchange. And that was what he was able to do. And of course, after serving just a year or two, he resigned at the I think he left at the last annual general meeting last year. And that annual general meeting was a bit of a tough one again for him, and we had video clips of that. And, you know, he was able to, because there are a lot of interests around the NGX and transition and what have you, and he was able to manage that annual general meeting last year. And I sat through all the hours of the annual meetings and was able to use his experience, I'm sure, which he got a lot from his dad, and law practice and corporate governance and what have you, to bring to bear and ensure that everything went on smoothly, and then handed over to a new chairman of the NGX group, which is Alhaji Umaru Kwaranga, who is now also using his own experience to lead the exchange to a new horizon. So in summary, we've lost two of the greatest men, as it were, in Nigeria on Broad Street, and I think the market will really miss them, miss the experiences, miss the pedigree, their goodwill, and all of that over some time to come. Their shoes will be quite big, and get to fill them up.
Very big shoes to fill indeed. Boason
Yes.
Omofaye, Arise Business Anchor, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Thank you.